Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining this session. My name is James, and I'm an engineering manager at Reddit. Before that, I led product teams at TIER, multiple teams, and some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today are some of the lessons that I learned along the way. I am going to be talking about how managers can lead with feasibility. And I've always developed keen interest when it comes to sailing. Because sailing has been one of the oldest transportation. If you look at history, sailing has helped civilizations to develop as people sail across oceans to settle in new areas or trade with others. In fact, today, over 90% of the world's goods and services are transported over waters. But one of the most dangerous conditions to navigate a ship is when you have restricted visibility because of fog, heavy rain, dust storm. The reason why it's dangerous because when you have reduced visibility, the risk of colliding with another vessel or fixed object on the shoreline is very high. And the main responsibility of a ship officer on watch is to ensure safe and smooth navigation of the ship. But today's talk is not about sailing, rather, it's about leading with feasibility. But I like to compare the job of a sailor to that of an engineering manager who has to lead software teams and have to respond to and manage complexity to deliver business outcome in an orderly and predictable manner. As a leader or a tech leader, you are going to be following certain route to get to a specific destination. There will be external factors that you will need to take into consideration to stay on course. But if you are not getting aware of these external factors or having visibility over them, it will be very difficult to manage them. As a manager, one of the things you will deal with are not going to be fog. Rather, they're going to be people issues that are preventing your team from moving forward. They are not going to be door storms. There will be delivery and operation issues that are preventing them from delivering values to users. It's not going to be tidal waves. They are going to be process issues that are slowing teams down. And even sometimes there are external factors like your culture, engineers' personal lives, even business goals sometimes, as well as company goals, can affect your development flow and ability to deliver on those outcomes and goals. The challenging thing is when you are leading a team of 2 to 3 engineers, you might have all the feasibility you need because you can even be the glue that brings the team together. At this time, you might even be hands-on. So you might be working, you know what is going on. The feedback is super fast because you are directly working with the team together. But as you grow, maybe to like 7 engineers or even multiple teams, feasibility start to decrease. And you start to notice that feedback takes longer than before. And at the same time, you start to lose visibility. And if you don't have this visibility, it becomes very, very difficult to drive change and influence your team. So today, I'm going to be talking about 4 framework you need to get quantitative and qualitative data to be able to have visibility into what is going on your team and how to help them effectively. So as a leader, you need to be able to understand process. Everything you do from day to day can be grouped into from performance review, from one-on-ones, from coaching sessions. Everything you do as a leader can be grouped into 4 categories. And this is what I call process, operation, people, and product. And to be able to lead your team effectively, you need to get data, concrete data from all of these to have the needed feasibility. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on some of these. When it comes to process, you need to be able to understand how your team is building what they are building on time and on budget. If your organization is like most organizations, there's a chance that you don't have all the time in the world and you don't have all the budget in the world. So the only constraint you can manipulate is how can you help your team to deliver what they are building on time. And the second one is operation. You need to be able to understand what has been built, the state they are in production. Because we don't build software and forget about it. We maintain them. So you need to be able to have visibility into this to be able to trade, to maintain balance between investing in building new features or improving existing experience for users. And at the end of the day, you also need to be able to understand the people that are building what they are building. Are they happy? And are they, happy to continue building what they are building? And the last one is the product. How do users feel your product? Are they getting value and satisfaction from it? So let's take a look at the process. When I talk to leaders or people sometimes, I usually hear, I am not a process person. I just go with the flow. I don't like too much process. And the reason is we sometimes confuse process with rituals and ceremonies. The truth is, you always have a process. Process is the way you habitually do things. And as long as you do something, there's a process behind it. If your company is about making pizzas, the process is how you convert the raw material to something that can be delivered to users. And when you don't have visibility into the process, sometimes they develop organically and it might not be intentional. It might not take you to where you want to go. And to be able to understand process, I think tech leaders need to have visibility into where they spend their time and things that affect delivery. For example, if you want to go fast, if you want your team to go as fast as possible, you might need to look at the architecture that you have, code base. Does it allow the team that you have to go fast enough? Is there a bottleneck there? You might need to look at autonomy. Are teams empowered to ideate, figure things out, or do they have to get what they want to work on, the problem, the solution dictated from to them from above? And you also need to look at collaboration. Nobody writes software in isolation. There's collaboration with stakeholders, there's collaboration with other teams in the company. So, how do different functions within this team work together? Do they have a shared understanding of what they are building? And how do you have visibility into process, how teams are getting things done and how they're doing it within the time that you have and within the budget you have? One of the most effective ways that I've seen is through one-on-one. When you use one-on-ones effectively, it can be a platform for a lot of information that allows you to know what is going on in the team and with each engineer individually. For example, if your team is suffering from process problem, you might discover that this team will commit to something and then they won't deliver. They might constantly be meeting surprises along the way because they are not investing time in discovering the problem space. So through one-on-one, you can use it to pick signals of things that are going wrong by asking crucial questions and how you can support them. The second part is through productivity metrics. And there are a lot of opinions about how these things should be measured. Because historically, engineering is not that good at measuring things. But one of the ways that I think leaders can understand how the team is doing is by measuring DORA metrics. It can be very powerful. It allows you to see patterns, what is going on across team. For example, development frequency can allow you to see how often the team release code to production. And it can allow you to see the trend. Are you getting better at this thing or you are not getting worse day by day? And at the same time, the lead time for changes can allow you to see how long it takes a commit to get into production. That is, how long does it take to deliver this value to users? Are there things preventing this? So if you get the data from this quantitative data, you are able to see the trend. And this trend can help you to engage your team. Ask them, what is happening? What is going on? Is it that we don't have enough people on the team? Or what is the problem? Or is it that the team is not working on things that can directly lead to generating values to users? And the next one is engineering surveys. Some people will call it the state of the engineering. And why is this very important? There are if you already have a way of measuring productivity, for example, DORA or space metrics, there are some information you cannot get from those quantitative metrics. A good example is you might find out that your backend engineers are super happy with their CI/CD pipelines, their ability to release multiple times a day. But Android or iOS engineers might hate their release process. Sometimes the frustration might be from a fraction of these iOS engineers. Maybe they had experienced a better release process from their previous company and saw the need for change. So by carefully sending surveys, maybe on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, to understand what is the pain point, what is the best thing to invest on to make you deliver what you are doing, how can I support you? Another one could be the documentation. Existing engineers on the team might not see a need to change their documentation culture because they were practically in the company when all the decisions were made and they have all the context. But you might find out new engineers that are onboarding don't have this context and they hate it. So some of this data you cannot get it without sending surveys. And the second part that I want to talk about is the operation. And this is about having visibility into how what has been built already is running and be operable. Like I mentioned before, when you build software, the journey does not end there. We still have to maintain it. We need to support it. And as a manager or a tech leader, you need to be able to tread the right balance. Should we invest in reliability work or invest in building new features for our users? If you are growing, which most organizations at their point, they are going to get to a stage where they are growing. Every organization want to grow. There are two primary indicators for you to know that you are really, really growing. You start to see that complexity is mounting, increasing, because due to acceleration. For example, or you maybe you started with 10,000 customers, but as you are entering more market, you are discovering what they need, their unique way of doing things, and you need to support this. All these bring complexity to your code base or to your system. And at the same time, the rate of change will become really, really high. As you are learning new things, you want to experiment as quick as possible. So all this means growth. And there are a number of things that will go under pressure when you grow. Your process will start to break down. Communication will start to break down. But for engineering teams, performance and reliability will go under pressure when you grow that fast. This was exact state some of my teams I tell were. During my time, at a point we were constantly putting out fires as we scale. Our system were not capable of supporting our growth. At our peak period, we were experiencing outages. We will resolve one outage and then we have to wait for the next outage to strike. We didn't have visibility at that time. It became a reactive endeavor than a proactive one. If only in one-on-one, engineers will talk about why XYZ has to be taken care of before the next peak season. But it was really, really hard to prioritize. It was hard to let peers see that we need to do this. And for managers, you need to be able to have metric to back this thing up, to be able to know we need to do this right now. And during that time, there was one lesson that I picked. Most of the systems we have, 80% of the time, systems don't fail suddenly. If you are going to experience an outage tomorrow, maybe because of a not migrating your database, you will start to see from now that, okay, if we continue to grow at this rate and we don't do this migration, this will become a bottleneck in 1 year. You see this. And systems, they fail gradually, and then all of a sudden, they fail. So, and this presents a unique opportunity. It means you can get data that will allow you to be able to manage systems when they go to fail and react, not reactively, but proactively. How do you keep a pulse on operation pillar? One of the best way that I've seen is to define service level objectives. So service level objectives is more or less like saying this specific service or feature, this is the goal, this is the reliability target we expect out of this system. And SLIs allows you to be able to get these to allow you to be able to measure this goal. And at the same time, SLO doesn't make any sense if you don't have SLA. So SLA is more or less like saying, if we don't meet this goal that we have set, this is what is going to happen. And by leveraging the concept of error budget, you are able to like balance that, okay, if we exceed our error budget, this is what we are going to do. We need to probably, for example, stop development and make sure our system is back again. It does two things for your teams. It allows you to be able to build cases for reliability work, and at the same time, it gives the team confidence that what they are building is working and they can manage them effectively. But when you measure XLO, don't just measure latency availability alone. You need to measure what directly affects your users. If you're building a tiny feature that allows users to register, so you might set an SLO that 99.9% of the time, every user's attempt to register on this platform must be successful. And if it is not like that, this is what is going to happen. This is what we're going to do. With this can allow you to strike the right balance. The third pillar that you need to get data from, both quantitative and qualitative, is the people pillar. No matter your team's topology or structure, the execution of your roadmap boils down to the people on the team. If the people on the team are not happy doing what they are doing or happy working together, demotivated or disengaged, nothing will move forward. Everything will stand still. And as an organization, your most important asset is the people you have. This is why you need to create an environment that ensures your most important assets are happy to show up and stay with you. So there have been a lot of research about what really happens when you have a motivated team. They learn faster, they communicate better, they produce high quality work, and they derive satisfaction from what they do. But these will not develop organically without conscious effort from you as tech leader to allow that environment. So, and when I look at what we do as leaders or manager, I see that we hire people. One of the things we do is to make sure we have the right people on the team. And when we do this, we don't stop. We kind of like grow them, make sure they're happy working together, and at the same time, connect what they are doing from day to day basis to where they want to be in the future. And all these two, they are just the beginning. I think one of the most difficult part is to make sure that these people are happy doing what they are doing and they are still interested in doing it. And this is about retention. It can be very, very tough to crack. There have been some research about what really makes employees engage, what more really makes them motivated. And I want to share a couple of them with you. One of them is the autonomy. You might want to look at autonomy. How do they feel about getting what they are doing? How do they feel about it? Do they feel like they have autonomy to decide how they want to do it? Or do things get dictated to them? Do you give them problem as well provide solution? Or you give them problem and allow them to use their creative minds to find solution to the problem? And the second one is the purpose. Do they connect to the purpose of the organization? During hiring managers interview, this is what most hiring managers usually check for. How motivated is this person to join our company? But this does not have to stop at that time. You need to constantly evaluate this along the way. Do they feel the company is moving in the right direction? Are they still interested in us? And another one is growth. So most people that I speak to, sometimes they leave the company they are working for because they feel they don't see a path for growing in that company. So as managers, you need to check, get data like, do engineers feel like they have clarity about how to get to the next step? Do they feel like they are growing? What they are working on day to day allows them to learn and grow. And another one is recognition. So, and this is not just about compensation alone. If someone does great work, what is the chance that the person will be recognized? Do they get enough feedback into in regards to what they are doing, how they are performing? And the last one that I want to talk about is the compensation. There was a time where we have something called the Great Resignation, and people were just resigning, leaving companies. And someday, some of them could be due to compensation. How do engineers feel about the values they are bringing? Do they feel that they are fairly compensated for the values they bring? And this is not only that. Do they feel like they can have constructive conversation with their managers about pay? Are they able to like explain why they are getting what they are getting? And how do you have feasibility into this? One of the effective ways that I've seen is by performing regular engagement checks through one-on-ones or through anonymous surveys. You want to make sure you cover some of these areas, pillar. How do they feel? And then you get data and aggregate them. And when you see it, don't just get the data, do something about it. Make sure that you build an environment where people feel if they provide their opinion, something will be done. And there are a number of great tools you can use, like Peacon or Culture Amp. And the last pillar that I want to talk about today is the product. And here, it is possible to have an engaged software team. So, and they can be working on what they are working on and happy. And they can build it with all the scalability, reliability that one can expect out of a system. But at the end of the day, they can be happily doing this for the wrong, and your users are unhappy. This can happen if you are solving the wrong problem for the users. If the customer pain points are not being tackled. And this is why you need to understand how users feel about what you are building. Are they getting values from it? And one of the ways that I have seen to measure this is by actually measuring crucial metrics about what your team is building. And at the same time, you need to measure something that correlate to users' experience about your product. It's not enough to measure revenue metrics or maybe business metrics. You want to measure things that are customer centric, that directly correlate with how users experience. And one way that I've seen is leveraging Google Health Framework. For example, do users find your product helpful, fun, and easy to use? Do they find this happiness when they use your product? And are they engaged with it? Are users engaging with your product? Are they moving from one screen to another? How do they engage with one features to another? Do they find values in them? And another one is the adoption. Are users completing onboarding process and becoming regular users? What is the percentage of the people landing on your product actually going through to sign up? And retention, are they renewing their subscription? If you are building something that people have to pay, what is the percentage of users that are coming back to the product? Maybe renew subscription or coming back to use it. If you have high retention rate, it's usually a signal that you are doing something that customers are happy about or users find valuable. And finally, tax success. How fast are people doing, or maybe your users achieving their goals? How quickly are they getting that thing done? So if you experience friction around any of these areas, so this can help you know that you need to do something. If you see that users are dropping off, they are not completing onboarding, there might be something that is stopping them. And this data allows you to dig deeper to really understand and be able to tackle the problem effectively. Finally, if you are going to take something from this talk, I want you to know that number don't tell the whole story. When you get quantitative data, you also need to get qualitative data. So don't look at deployment frequency and say, hey, my team, we need to make 20 deployments per day. You need to support metrics with personal interviews. If something is going wrong with the product, talk to your customers. Why are they dropping off? Why are they not renewing their subscription? Support the metric you are seeing by interviewing them. If you see that autonomy is dropping in the company, people don't feel like they have the autonomy they need to work, ask them, talk to your engineers, employees, ask them what is going on. And sometimes when you see a metric that does not meet expectation, use it as a coaching opportunity. If you see that lead time is going up instead of trending down, coach your team why it is important. That this thing is just to see when I need to step in to support you. If deployment frequency is going down, talk to your team why you need to deliver values to users as fast as possible. And this is why you need to make iterative development or pull smaller pull requests. Use metrics that don't meet expectation as an opportunity to coach your team. And finally, start, tune, and refine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. I really liked what you were saying there about. Oh, my mind's gone blank. Sorry. you, um, you were saying there about. My apologies. Um, I'll stop there for a second. We're going to have time for questions and for my mind to reset. We've had one question come in already. So it's Aniela has asked, are you using Dora also for native apps applications? And if so, do you use the same target as for the web?
Yeah, that's really an interesting question. So, in terms of native application, is based on my experience, it's a little bit complicated to measure because they don't have the same cadence as web application. And if you have a native application, there's a chance that multiple teams are committing and building things around it. So what I've seen that works is to kind of like measure it generally across the org and to be able to like have this overview and combine it with your release cadence. For example, you might be releasing to the App Store maybe once a week. So if this thing drops down, there could be a problem. You might also be looking at lead time as well. But it can be a little bit tricky to measure for mobile applications compared to webs.
Thank you very much, James. I remembered what I was going to say as well. So I thought it was really powerful what you said about not just relying on the numbers, being curious and finding out what's behind them, getting the qualitative data as well. I had one more question. Where, if you talked about connecting people from connecting what they're doing to where they want to go, and I was wondering whether you could share any more on your thoughts and recommendations around this, James.
Yeah. So what really works for me is when I interview a candidate, I start right from the time I'm trying to interview them. I want to know the motivation and I want to know where they have been. I want to know their weaknesses, maybe areas they need improvement, and their strength. Because I think the most important thing about leader is to be able to capitalize on individual trends and at the same time help them to level up their areas where they are not as strong. And during maybe career conversations, I also like to ask about their motivation. What are the things they like to do? And what is that area they want to grow? And based on this, I develop a plan on how I can help this person. And with this plan, I look for tasks that might be sweetened, that might make this person get there. And this is how I connect the dot. There is a chance that what engineers want to do, you won't always have that task. But it's usually better to kind of like miss them. Sometimes what will make your business win is not something that engineers want to do. So you have to like strike the right balance at that point in time.
Thank you very much. That's excellent, James. We've got one more question. This will be the last one for this session. So this is from Anne. At what company stage do you start using Dora metrics in a startup? All the way from first developers?
Good question. I think I don't really have a hard rule for it, but sometimes when you start getting requests like, "Why is it taking forever to build features?" then this might be a chance for you to start looking at productivity and how can you find these bottlenecks. So at a point, you might be noticing that maybe when you were still a company of two, three people, you can decide on something and get it out today. But when you grow to like 50, things might be a little bit slower. And then people, stakeholders might start to ask you, like, we're just two people or three or 10. It was just easy. Right now, it tends to take forever. Then it is time for you to start bringing data and getting this data to like, help people get this feasibility you need and also help to like clarify this with people.